Hello everyone, welcome back to the genetically engineered and top secret comic vault. I'm Captain Logan.
Eric.
Eric, what are we talking about today, sir?
We're talking about Volume 9 of Ultimate Spider-Man Ultimate 6.
Finally back to Ultimate Spider-Man, and the first time we're having to kind of jump ship and go to a side book thing that is...
It's the only time we'll have to do that.
Is it the only time? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
But they collected it in the Ultimate Spider-Man. I remember feeling like it doesn't make sense that 9 and 10 are like this, but I could be wrong.
Oh. Like they're out of order or something?
Yes.
Like something happens in 10 that should have happened before it?
Yes.
Oh.
But I can't remember what. It's something with Doc Ock. Because next arc is a Doc Ock arc, and I remember feeling like that was weird, but I can't remember why.
Does he just immediately have his arms again?
Maybe.
Is it something like that?
Maybe.
Because at the end of this, and full spoilers as always, his
arms
are 30 miles away, and then he can still feel them, and then they go, oh, we better move them, Shield's like, we better move them further, and he doesn't and he's told they're destroyed.
Although if he has his arms
but
again...
But he doesn't believe that.
That might not be a huge issue. There's stuff going on with Doc Ock that you don't know about.
Okay.
Ultimate Doc Ock is very different from normal Doc Ock. You just don't... I don't know if Bendis knows it either, but...
Yeah. Because right now, I'm not super intrigued by this character, and I have issues with what's done with him here.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this collects Ultimate Spider-Man 46, which is the Sandman issue, which was also in that string of... Remember I said I had like that awful string of when I was subscribed?
Yeah.
Where it was Geldorf, 46, and then the beginning of the Kingpin Black Cat stuff. God, that Sandman issue is a great idea that just doesn't work. It's too long. It should not be an entire issue.
What's the great idea? What's the great idea about it?
I'm treating Sandman as like a real, like, insane level threat, because I've always thought Sandman was too powerful for a Spider-Man villain.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
And I like how they treat Sandman, but it's just... It's just talking, like, for the entire thing, and, like, it's just really boring.
It's also kind of fun that he's not supposed to be sympathetic at all.
Yeah, no, he's just...
That it's not like I've got a daughter and that makes it okay for me to break the law. Like, here it's just, he's a horrible person, and he, like, beat his wife and stuff.
I was surprised that he's still Flint Marko, because Bendis doesn't always care about that. We will later get a Vulture, and he's not Adrian Toomes.
Oh, interesting.
He's also not the second Vulture, I don't think.
His Electro is the same guy, though, right?
I don't know if he has a name.
Or has he not gotten a name yet?
I don't think he has a name. And then this also collects the Ultimate 6 miniseries, which is 7 issues long. So we're doing 8 issues this time.
Yeah.
Although we just kind of covered the Sandman issue.
Yeah, there's not a lot else to say about that.
No, it's Carol Danvers. Not Carol Danvers, it's...
No, it's Carter.
Yeah.
It's Sharon Carter.
Yeah, it's Sharon Carter.
What's interesting about that issue, though, I should say, with the rest of this, is that it feels almost like it could have been part of this miniseries. Like... It reads a little bit more like Spider-Man than this will read like Spider-Man, and we'll talk about that, because Bendis is, in my opinion, kind of trying to do a malark through a lot of this in writing the Ultimates and trying to his credit, match up with the tone that Millar wrote for the Ultimates. But it doesn't feel like it really features Spider-Man as its central protagonist any more than the miniseries does.
No, and... It's also weird because it takes place, like, 4 arcs ago? It takes place right after the 3rd arc. It's right after he fights Dr. Octopus and Craven.
Where that actually... Because I didn't know where Ultimate 6 was published.
Okay, so Ultimate 6 is published, if I remember, because I didn't... I don't read Ultimate 6 until I finally sit down and go through all of Ultimate in order when I'm buying the trades.
You had the singles in the first place, or at least the ones you were buying month to month.
Yeah, or I read them to the library and, like, things like that. So, like, but when I actually sat down, I'm like, I'm going to get all of Ultimate Spider-Man, which half of which were ruined, I'm having to rebuy now. But when I sat down, I was like, I'm getting all of Ultimate Spider-Man. That was the first time I'd read... The one time I sat down and did, like, a complete from beginning to end read-through of Ultimate Spider-Man, which I'd never done before. Like, I'd reread certain arcs, and I'd read it sporadically as it was going forward. But I'd never, like, sat down and read it front to back. That's the first time I read this. But I remember the ads and being like, well, what's that? Because those were in my...
Oh, for Ultimate 6?
Yeah, I remember the ads for Ultimate 6 in my issues of Ultimate Spider-Man.
And I've run into stray issues of that when I've been, buying up collections and stuff for resale. Never knew what it was.
I believe it basically
I assumed it was a Sinister Six thing, but I wasn't sure.
So Ultimate Spider-Man 46 is just before the Kingpin stuff starts, so I assume that it's publishing concurrently with that Kingpin arc we just read.
Okay.
Which
makes sense. So you're saying it is actually set up by 46, and it's not issues and issues before you get...
Yes.
Because that's what I thought maybe they did.
Yeah.
And it's like...
But also feels a little lazy, because it's just like, well, we need Sandman. What? Now we have Sandman.
Well, and like I think the Kraven stuff in Ultimate 6 is really convenient timing.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, well, we need another character.
Yeah.
And so
we haven't
seen him in a while, and let's just say that just now stuff's going on with him.
Yep. Yep. Unless that was somehow part of the plan? No, because they don't make a plan until after they break out.
Yeah, no, there's no way that was part of the plan.
Okay. Before
and
we
I don't know why Norman Osborn is obsessed with number 6, but... Because it does kind of read like that, right? Where it's like, we need one more.
Yep.
I mean, the one more is Spider-Man. Like, he would have said that no matter what the number was, but they kind of treat it like, it's gotta be 6.
Well, no, Kraven gets captured and put in prison.
Right.
And he breaks them all out. So I guess it's kind of that Kraven just got put there, but like they've just been piling up.
Okay.
And he says it's going to be 6 because there's going to be Spider-Man.
I just thought the timing of that was kind of
no, that's
easy.
fair.
Yeah. But anyway.
But because it doesn't actually, that's not what makes Doc Ock do what he's doing. Before we get into the actual
it's not.
story, so you don't forget about this, I want to talk about the art.
Yep.
So, the art credit is Trevor Hairsine with Mark Bagley and Joe Quesada. Mark Bagley obviously does Spider-Man 46.
Yes.
Joe Quesada draws like the first 4 pages of Ultimate 6 for some reason.
And then none of the rest of it?
And, yeah.
I didn't even notice that. Weird.
He just draws this beginning part, and I was reading it, because I remember not liking the art in this book. And I was reading it, I was like, this is a lot better than I remember it being. And so it's this Electro stuff, and then where Captain America and Iron Man are like real fat or like way too buff just on the upper torso.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And that's this other artist who I don't hate. This read through I don't hate, but boy does he feel like he's just like B-grade Brian Hitch.
That's
like
exactly
he's
what
like
it reads like, yeah.
Muddier Brian Hitch.
Mm-hmm. The faces are like more amorphous, like slightly cartoonier.
Yeah.
But with depth, so it's weirder. Like if it was flatter, it would look better.
Like flatter coloring.
Like flatter pencils.
Okay.
You know, because it's this attempt at like I don't want to say photorealistic, but you know what I mean, where it's like it's this attempt at depth. It's not flat. It's not 2-dimensional, but it's like too stylized for that. Yeah,
and it works with Brian Hitch, but it doesn't work with this artist.
And it looks better. Like certain characters look better than others. Like his Peter Parker face is kind of dumb.
I don't like his Peter Parker. I really don't like his hair. His hair is weird.
Yeah, I just think he has weird expressions. Like he draws, and I think there's a lot of artists like this that get into comics because, well, maybe this isn't why they get into comics, but where the thing they draw really well is a character in a costume. Mm-hmm. But as soon as they have to draw a regular person, or even a person in costume with their mask off, the faces just look weird. So like,
well, then he's the wrong person for this book because it's 90% people without costumes on.
Yeah, precisely. But his Captain America's okay.
His Captain America's fine. His Iron Man's good.
You know why? Because their faces are covered.
Yep. His Spider-Man's not bad.
Yeah. But he also has that early 2000s Superman problem of a bunch of superheroes with their eyes closed. Mm-hmm. For no good reason. Like, look at Thor. Why is his eyes closed? I don't know.
Yep. But I just want to mention the art, because a lot of times we don't mention art, and I wanted to talk about it before.
Yes. Wow, look at that Nick Fury face.
Yeah. A lot of bad faces. And I think that's really his problem. Like, I don't think he's a terrible draftsman. I think it's almost entirely the faces. Yeah. But, like, it's just... And I don't
And his action's okay, but there's not a lot of action in this book, which we'll talk about.
Why are his eyes closed there?
Yeah, and look at the giant finger.
And this is a complete Mark Millar moment. The Osborne! You're trespassing. That is a Mark Millar moment.
It totally is.
But when we get to the action stuff, it's not bad.
So, yeah, but it's like 5 pages the whole book.
Look how bad he looks. Like, it's just, I don't think the artwork in this... It's like halfway between Greg Land and Brian Hitch. And I like Greg Land more than a lot of people. At least aesthetically, not so much...
The fact that he's tracing?
Yeah, well, and he's tracing... There's evidence of him, like, tracing art. I don't actually mind the lightboxing thing. I don't love it, but, like... I like his artwork well enough.
Specific things that he took exactly,
Well, more that he's swiped some other art and will reuse his art, where, like, it looks like he's tracing himself.
Oh.
Most artists use some kind of photo reference when they're drawing.
Well, yeah.
Tracing over it is a little too far, but, like, I like the pictures he ends up with most of the times. Like, I don't hate Greg Land. I don't love Greg Land either. Like, I would rather he not be on a book, but
Yeah.
I know people that won't read a book if he's drawing it.
Yeah, and I'm not like
But
that.
his faces are often very strange. And it's...
Well, that's probably because he's tracing real people's faces.
Yeah. And so, like, it's half... And him also, because I
Maybe
feel...
that's what he's doing. Maybe that's how you get that.
Maybe.
Maybe that's how you get some of those weird lines that I can't exactly place, like how those might up
Look
a
at the
face.
Fury's eyes.
Well, just at least one of them, you know, because the other
No,
one's
look at
covered
both of them.
with an eye. Oh, that is weird.
It's, like, drooping.
Wait, why is that happening? That's a terrible superpower.
That's not a traced face.
No.
He drew that and it was bad.
Or it is a trace face. Maybe that's proof that it is. Where like the
page like moved while he was
just moved
tracing.
while he was tracing it.
But I also think, and like I do with Greg Land as well, I think Greg Land's pencils are hurt significantly by coloring, and I think his is too. I want to know what the pencils for this looks like, because the coloring feels muddy, and it's making the artwork look worse.
It would be nice to have just the pencils.
Now the faces are bad. Like, the faces are bad entirely, but I feel like even some of the not faces stuff looks worse than it should because of the coloring.
So,
but we should talk about the actual book.
yeah, so can I tell you my biggest issue with this book? Just tonally.
And it's like 3 issues stretched to 7?
That's a big problem. Tonally, I want to start here before
Okay.
we get into the story, because I think this is a good setup place.
Mm-hmm.
I always suspected that, like, we started this 2 years ago with Dan, and going back and reading that after you and I had done the Ultimates, and maybe we did 2 later.
Yeah, we did 2 after. And
but-
this is between them, or while 2's coming out, because 2 takes forever to come out. I think this is happening during 2.
This reads like 2 hasn't happened yet.
Okay, I'm not sure. We
But I
might
mean,
be like an issue or 2 in the 2.
Yeah, maybe some of it's come out, but I'm saying, like,
But, like, Thor's still on the
story-wise,
team.
Right, precisely.
Bruce Banner isn't dead yet. So yeah, this is definitely...
Well, and obviously stuff with Pym hasn't happened yet.
But he's definitely beaten his wife.
Well, yes.
Which is weird.
I thought that happened in the first one, though.
It does happen in the first one.
But that's when the stuff from 2 with Pym doesn't
But I feel like
yet.
he's not... Pym is actually my issue continuity-wise, where I was like, I don't think he's on the team when this book is taking place, or he is still on it. I can't remember. No, because he's working with Bruce Banner. He's the one who's talking to Bruce Banner in Ultimates 2.
Yeah.
But here they're like, I know it's weird for you to see Pym here. I'm like, but Pym is there.
Yeah, but maybe, like, he's working there, but he usually is just really careful not to, like, see
He's not being
Janet and
giant,
stuff. It's
man.
like,
Yeah.
no, I thought it was more just, it's weird that we, like, invited him to this meeting, like, in this room.
Okay.
I thought
Okay.
that's what that was. But anyway, I always suspected that if I got these 2 things together, they wouldn't mesh, and they don't. They don't for me. I have a really tough time with these things existing in the same universe. Like, I really wish that this reads like doing a Marvel DC amalgam thing to me. Like, it's that far in my brain where I'm just like, this Spider-Man doesn't fit with these characters, like with these Avengers. You could have something potentially like more cynical off to the side with a Spider-Man that is not that way. That's just maybe not, well, Spider-Man's never black and white, but like reads a little bit more realistic here and there. Those 2 things could maybe go together, but this is just Millar sensibilities. This reads like Millar Spider-Man.
Well, and it's interesting because if you ever read Ultimate X-Men, which Millar writes, at least the first, like, 2 or 3 years of that, there's a crossover with the Ultimates called Ultimate War, I think? And that also feels very strange. Like, even though it's Millar writing the 2 books he's writing, when those 2 cross over, it doesn't mesh.
The thing that's at odds is the idea of reworking these characters and trying a different version of them for a new generation versus creating a universe of that. Those things were all initially kind of conceived as separate entities, and then we throw them in a universe together, and they're just not meshing.
Well, I think the problem is
Because
more...
I like the idea of the Ultimates, and like I like that book, and I don't have a problem with that as a concept, but not in the same universe. They just don't fit together.
See, I don't actually think the problem is that they're in the same universe. It's that we took a... It's about tones and consistency.
It is, but I don't think you can write the Ultimates and make them the Ultimates if it isn't that tone.
But I think the Ultimates can come into Spider-Man and be a little bit soft around the edges. And I think Spider-Man can go to the Ultimates. I think what's weird about this is that it's a Spider-Man story with the tone of the Ultimates. Because the
Spider-Man completely back.
Because the Ultimates will show up later.
Because I said it reads like Millar Spider-Man, but it's not focused on Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well, and one day we can do Millar Spider if you want to. That's a whole thing.
I didn't know he did that.
He did a 12-issue run on Spider-Man. It was Marvel Knight Spider-Man. It is weird.
Oh, he did that. Okay.
Yeah, he does the first 12 issues. After that, it gets really bad. But like,
well, and also let me say, I'm saying the Ultimates from this period because later we do Ultimate Avengers and we get really away from that tone. And
no, Ultimate Avengers is like doubling down on that tone. It's New Ultimates that gets away from that. Because that's Jeff Loeb.
Is that what it... Okay. Oh,
Ultimate Avengers is like the most cynical comic I've ever read by like a mainstream comic company.
Okay, but I'm talking like way later. Like I don't come into Ultimate Universe until Miles Morales. And the Avengers stuff that was going on then did not read like that.
But that's... No, because Miles Morales starts when Hickman's writing. Hickman writes it very cynically, and there is stuff later.
I didn't read a bunch of it. Just a couple issues. All I'm saying is the Captain America I read there, who becomes president, does not feel like this guy.
Sure,
that's all I'm saying.
The Ultimates will show up here and there throughout this series, and I feel like it always works better when they bring, because Ultimate X-Men is also very cynical and dark in a kind of different way. Like it's still Millar, but like in a kind of different way from the Ultimates. But like you didn't feel that when they showed up in Spider-Man because it was in the Spider-Man book. Yeah, it's that Deadpool thing. Anyone can go into Deadpool and exist in Deadpool's world, but I hate it when Deadpool goes into anyone else's world because he's wrong.
The thing is, if Millar wrote this, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it. Probably it's seeing Bendis kind of doing Millar with Spider-Man in it, not doing it great, huh? He's trying, and I guess I sort of appreciate that he's trying to keep them true to what they were. Since he doesn't tend to care about continuity stuff that much, and you would think he would just grab them and do whatever he wants to with them, and he's really respectful to what Millar did with it. But he's not the guy to write that, and in places it feels forced, and it feels kind of like edge for the sake of edge.
And I would describe this entire miniseries as a handful of good ideas, or just interesting ideas. I won't necessarily say good. A handful of interesting ideas.
Absolutely.
All executed poorly. The idea that you're going to do the Ultimate version of Sinister Six, but you're going to tell that story from the villain's perspective. Great idea.
Yeah.
We do nothing with it. The villains sit around for 6 issues just being evil.
And the heroes sit around for 6 issues waiting for something to happen.
Yeah. It is 2 issues before Doc Ock kills all his people, or kills the guards to break out. It is 2 whole issues, and that is the last page of issue 2.
And you don't really have anything to hang on to through a lot of that.
It's not like it's great character drama.
No, it's not. And talking about great ideas, like the idea that we talked about this in the car earlier. The idea that the Sinister Six are powerful enough that it doesn't really make sense for just Spider-Man to fight them. That's a good idea. That's
a good idea. And I can see how that gets you to. Well, then of course the Ultimates have to be involved. I think the mistake. You know what? I'm not even gonna say the mistake is making it not a Spider-Man story. I don't think that's a bad idea either. The problem is you then, like, I kind of like the idea that Spider-Man is a small bit player in this, because if this many supervillains got together, it would be an Avengers level threat, not a Spider-Man threat.
Yeah.
Fine. But then you also have the idea that's also a great idea that's not done anything with but the 6th member is Peter.
Yeah.
Peter makes 6.
Such a cool idea.
Great idea. The problem is Osborne abducts him, threatens him, this is it.
That's an awesome scene.
It's a great scene. Spider-Man shows up on the White House lawn. He punches one person, and they're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, he says he's going to kill my aunt." He's like, "No, we've got your aunt."
He
he's
tries
like,
to fight
okay.
Captain America is what happens.
Yeah.
And then Captain America's like, "No, we've got your aunt." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'll quit fighting."
We get like 2 pages of Peter being the 6th member of the Sinister Six. It's terrible.
And if they forced him, if they strong-armed him to work with them, and he was fighting the Ultimates, and we did that for at least 2 or 3 issues, maybe they would have won me over with the tone better.
If it was like Peter having because the easy way to do this, I think, especially with Ultimate Spider-Man tonally, is it's the grown-up world.
Yeah.
It's what the world really is, and Ultimate Spider-Man's a little idealized because it's through the eyes of Peter Parker, who's a naive child. That's a fine way to take that.
He didn't convince me that's what he was doing. Yeah.
Well, he should do it here. I don't think he is doing that here. But I think that's how you make those two tones match.
And that's why, to me, it felt like two universes that don't go together crossing, because it's a guy. It's sort of like, and I hate to throw this under the bus, but it's sort of like Batman versus Ninja Turtles, where it's like it's a Batman guy trying to write Ninja Turtles and trying to write a specific version of them, and he hasn't read enough of it or just doesn't appreciate it and prefers 87. This is. I think Bendis is doing the Millar tone better than he's doing the Ninja Turtles tone, but it still doesn't mesh because it's like he's kind of overcompensating. It's like, I'm the Spider-Man guy, I'm telling a Spider-Man story, but I want it to be an Ultimate story. And you're right, that could work. Like, I'm not complaining that these are put together. I'm saying that I was worried that they wouldn't fit together, and they don't read to me like they fit together.
But it's mostly from the perspective of the Sinister Six.
Yeah.
It's like I don't mind that darker tone. And one thing that I do think is really smart that he does is not only is Peter Parker not the protagonist, we never get into his head.
No, we don't.
We never stop him. It's pulling him into this dark
Even that scene
world.
with Captain America feels like it's more from Captain America. But the thing is, if he wrote this story in the main Spider-Man book and it was still from the villain's perspective, it wouldn't read like this.
Probably.
It wouldn't. It's like it is specifically that type of Millar cynicism because you have the Avengers there. I mean, because you have the Ultimates.
Well,
there.
it's also but to give him props at least a little bit. That's why you make it a miniseries and you don't put it in the main book.
No, that's true. That's absolutely true.
And so, I appreciate Bendis has a long line of experimentation that doesn't pay off well, and this is that where I'm like. Yeah, the idea of doing this story from the villain's perspective is a cool idea. The problem is you have nothing interesting to say or do with the villains.
I think it's worse than that.
And you don't have a story to tell. Because you don't have a plot.
But there are inklings where I don't understand how he doesn't. Like when you say you didn't have anything interesting to say with the villains, but the whole idea of Norman Osborn seeing Peter as perfection is kind of genius. I love that.
And we will keep playing with that.
But we didn't do anything with it here.
No, we didn't do anything with it here. And we are starting things here with Dr. Octopus that will pay off later, like in issue 100, that are very cool ideas with Dr. Octopus, but we're not there yet. I had that thing
where I called something and then was glad that it was what I called. Like, it wasn't that it was too callable. I was glad it happened, where he kept saying, bring me my son, but he meant Peter instead of Harry. I really liked that.
No, that's a great idea. There's a couple of those where they're just... He didn't have a story to tell, but he had a couple ideas of what to do with the characters. Like, that kind of ultimately comes to nothing, but it's a cool thing. I also like the Dr. Octopus and I are your dads, or your parents. I forget how he phrased it exactly. But they're like, we, the two of us, are your parents. We made you.
Yes.
I like that. And I like the pairing of them because they're the ones that... Nobody can decide who is Spider-Man's actual arch nemesis. Is it Green Goblin? There's a Dr.
That's
Octopus.
a good point.
I like that.
It reads like Norman Osborn is only as nice to Doc Ock as he is because he gives him some credit for Peter getting his powers and being like that genetic perfection, and that's kind of fun. Where he's got all this affection for Doc Ock, and you're like, this is almost creepy. I don't understand why he likes this guy.
Well, and he comes from the same accident that created the Goblin in the first place.
Right. Do you think that this has some of the same problems that Venom does?
The Venom arcs?
Yeah. I just thought of this, where the issue is, you didn't start with a story premise, you started with, we gotta do the ultimate version of this thing.
Yeah.
And really, it begins and ends with just the premise of, it's Ultimate Sinister Six! You know what I mean? Not like, you start with that, but then, you tell a cool, cohesive story with it. Like, you don't want to be reading the thing and the whole time be constantly just thinking, well, the novelty here is supposed to be, it's the ultimate version of this thing. You want it to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of your big complaint with Venom, was like, he was kind of forced to do Venom, and he didn't really like that character, and so he just, he just kind of, coasted.
Yeah, this feels... Well, and we know for a fact with that one he was forced to do that. This doesn't feel like a thing he was forced to. This feels like a thing that Bendis really thought was a good idea and just didn't pan out.
No, it does. That's where it's different, but you see where I'm seeing similarities.
Yes.
You just began and ended with Ultimate whatever.
I think part of the biggest problem with this is Bendis isn't great at writing villains, and he's essentially trying to do the West Wing of supervillains. Like, that's what, like, 5 of these 7 issues are, is, like, bad guys talking, and people, like White House people talking. Like, that's what 5 of these, like, 7 issues are. It's just, like, but it's not witty banter. It's not interesting. Like, I don't need anything that happens at the White House.
No.
I need the one scene where Nick Fury gets yelled at because Norman Osborn called, and I like that scene. I like, look, I let you do whatever you want. As long as it doesn't come back to me, it's coming back to me.
Well, what I love is, like, he complains that Nick Fury did all this stuff behind his back without anybody knowing. He doesn't really care that those villains got taken in
without they got caught
without due process. Yeah, he just doesn't like that it's going to come back and look at it and look poorly on him. But also, I love the end of that scene because he just says, at the very least, make sure they're not calling my house, and I thought that was great.
Also, a very generic president. He is not George W. Bush, and he's not drawn that way. But he is an Ultimate, which was jarring to me.
Yeah, good call. I forgot about that.
Like, he is very explicitly George W. Bush in the Ultimate.
It's almost that MCU problem where, like, you thought Obama was president, and then it turned out it was this other guy.
Yeah.
Do you think that this book, that part of the problem with this, because, like, it's 7 issues, it's way longer than it needs to be for the story it's telling, and it's called Ultimate 6. If you're going to make it a weird longer number, make it 6. Make it 6 issues, of course. But, like, it's overwritten. And I know we say that with Bendis a lot, but
this feels like more modern Bendis. This is Bendis when he's not firing. And
where he's not bothering to revise, and nobody's editing him. And
like, I mean, at this point, Ultimate Spider-Man is double shipping, and he's doing this miniseries, and he's writing New Avengers. And I think he's writing something else. Like, he probably didn't revise this. This is probably a lot of first draft material.
Well, was he writing Powers at this time? Was that still coming out?
Powers is weird because Powers is really sporadic because Bendis is one of the few people like this that does create your own. Like, Jeff Johns doesn't do create your own stuff.
Right.
Bendis does. Bendis always prioritizes Marvel. Usually, it's the other way around. Bendis doesn't do that. So maybe this he could have been writing Powers, or it could have been like a 2-year gap in Powers. Like, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
like, the reason I brought that up now is that scene with the president is great. It's still like twice as long as it needs to be.
Yeah. Same thing with a lot of the villain scenes where I'm like, you have a fun bit here that's 1 page, but it's a 4-page scene of people talking. I don't need the 4 pages. Just give me the fun little bit you have.
Yeah. I was talking about how there's a difference between realistic dialogue and dialogue I believe. He is obsessed with realistic dialogue, and sometimes it's too realistic. It'll just
start and stop.
Take me out's not the right way to put it. It's that it just bogs it down. Where it's like, yeah, maybe these people would be stuttering here. Maybe it would take a minute or 2 for this person to collect his thoughts. I don't need to read all of that unless there's some kind of an emphasis on, look how scared he is because this horrible thing. So, sometimes it makes sense to do that. Much of the time, it just reads self-indulgent. It's just Bendis going, yeah, I listen to people talk. I'm a people watcher. Like, good for you. You can write dialogue that sounds like if my mom came over, but I don't want to read that.
There is a thing, I do not remember where this is.
Believable over realistic every time.
It's on a documentary or a behind-the-scenes feature or something, but it's Joe Quesada talking. And he talks about how writing comic book dialogue is different than writing movie dialogue because you just have there's an art to writing it so that it sounds realistic but isn't. Yeah. He goes, if you play back the tape of what I've said right now for this whole conversation, I'll sound like an idiot. Like, you transcribe it, I will sound like an idiot.
And Bendis writes that way.
Bendis writes that way.
And I said, you know me, I don't like to speak in absolutes. I said always believable over realistic. If you write a thing, the point is, I'm trying to show you what real people actually sound like. Sure, probably not going to make a great comic book, but
it works in issue 13.
Yeah.
When it's the Peter Mary Jane discussion, and it works in the Aunt May therapy issue. It works in those kinds of contexts.
It's like the whole issue.
Yeah, that's it, and it's the point of that issue.
Precisely. Here, it reads self-indulgent. It bogs the narrative down.
And he does it in a certain way with Peter, not in this, but normally with Peter, where it just feels like how Peter talks.
Sure. Here, people sound more the same, right?
Yeah.
Except when he gets to the Ultimates, and he's trying to make him sound like Millar was writing it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it just... I said coming into this, I said last time we did one of these, that, like, the next one is not my favorite. Like, I'm not a fan of this. I don't think it works. I think it's bad.
I don't think it's the worst thing we've read.
It's better than Venom.
I think it's on par with Venom.
It doesn't have the mistakes that Venom has.
Sure.
There's no balloons in the wrong place. There's no misspellings.
Yeah,
like,
it's not lazy. It's not lazy.
A more competent piece than Venom.
It's true. No, when I said nobody edited him, I didn't find mistakes. I just thought stuff was too long. I just thought you needed to excise an entire section.
I think there's enough interesting stuff in here that I think it's better than Venom.
Okay, sure, fair enough.
But it's better than Geldorf, or at least you know what it is. You know what it feels like. You remember that Professor X scene that went on forever at the end of Geldorf? It's like that, but a mini-series.
At least nobody was talking about like how babies are born.
Yeah. We didn't get a whole page explaining what a placenta is.
Yes, that's what it was.
Before we got into the super version of the placenta, like we just. Oh my god!
It was an ultimate placenta.
Yeah, it was ultimate placenta. We had to explain what a placenta was first because.
I'm really glad it wasn't them.
Anyways, it's not great. He doesn't have anything to do with Kraven, Electro, or Sandman.
No, Kraven is a plot device to get a video crew there.
Yeah, and he tries to retroactively deal with the fact that he made Kraven a joke, which was a fine way to deal with Kraven. But he tries to make Kraven a threat now, which unfortunately one of the few issues I have with Spectacular Spider-Man is they do that with Kraven.
Oh, really?
They don't do the first Ultimate thing. But they make Kraven lose and then come back with like a serum that makes him like a lion man.
Yeah, okay.
Like and I just don't like that.
I always liked the reality show take.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was a cool idea.
And I love the joke of, but he's just a guy? Like, as tough as he is, he's just a guy, and Spider-Man can take him out with one punch. I like that.
And it's fun because he takes himself too seriously. But with this, I don't know, the whole, again, overwritten, he just goes on too long about the fact that Spider-Man's just a kid.
I also don't believe the reality show thing that, like, he's gonna... The premise is that he's gonna get back on top by fighting Spider-Man again, but he's done these genetic alterations to himself, so, like, the second he fights him, he's still gonna get arrested. Like, I don't understand who Kraven is at this point.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because it seems like he is just a reality star, but then he also is a full-blown supervillain. I don't know who he is as a person.
And he would not be here if it weren't for that number.
Yeah.
It's just, it's got to be 6.
Yeah. And Electro and Sandman I actually don't mind as much as just, like, they're the thugs. Like, we don't have to give everyone something to do.
It's not a big deal. Sandman got his own issue before that.
And Sandman's just a sadistic monster, and I don't think comes back.
Oh, really?
He might be part of the team that murders Spider-Man, but I don't think he is.
I like how big he is. He's hard to beat. Like, I like all that.
They should have looked at the Sandman stuff for Far From Home. Like, there's some dynamic action here, and, like, this is how you treat Sandman as a large threat, but still Spider-Man action.
Yeah.
But...
That's a good call. I like that bit where, was it the Wasp who... Yeah.
Flies inside of him?
Yeah, she flies inside of him, and then she says, like, I'm probably the only person in history that's ever been covered in, like...
Gingivitis when I save the world.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. No, and there's some good lines in here.
There are some good lines.
Yeah, and I like Sandman as a force of nature. I've always... I don't think we ever do anything with Sandman after this, but I've always liked that take on Sandman of just, like... Because I think Sandman's too powerful for Spider-Man. I've never liked Sandman because I think he's too powerful for Spider-Man.
I always feel like that about all the, like, big elemental type characters where I'm like, what is Spider-Man going to do against water? What is Spider-Man going to do against sand? Like...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, none of those feel like... Water, for some reason, doesn't bother me as much, because water doesn't seem as dangerous. I understand it is, but sand seems worse to me.
And I realized that it was all like that it wasn't real. But in Far From Home, when he goes up against water and he just starts shooting webs at it, I'm like, what is that going to do? Like, what do you think you're doing? Like, I never thought about it with water.
Well, I mean, at least in the comics, usually he has, like,
a hologram.
At least in comics, he has, like, usually he, like, fortifies his web with some kind of thing that, like it hardens when it hits the water, so, like, it's holding him in place. Like, he usually does some kind of science thing to deal with that. And he does, too, with Sandman, I guess. Sandman's just always bothered me. And I'm sure part of that, I'm sure part of that comes from being a 90s kid growing up with 90s cartoon. Sandman's not in that, but Hydro Man is.
Right.
So Hydro Man doesn't seem as overpowered to me.
And Hydro Man was kind of the stand-in
but
for Sandman.
yeah, but Sandman does seem too powerful to me. Like, maybe that's not fair, but like I've always, but then reading this also in my formative years of Spider-Man reading,
but
he's treated as a force of nature.
He is treated in this like he is too powerful for Spider-Man. That's
Yeah,
the idea.
yeah, and I like that.
Yeah. So there's stuff in this where
we also get the Electro scars, which we will later do in main continuity. We get those lightning bolt scars in his face, which are dumb.
I didn't even notice that.
And too silly for the Ultimate Universe. The Ultimate Universe always is in this weird place of like, we're more realistic and serious, but sometimes we do dumb things.
Yeah.
And that's what the lightning bolt scars are, and like the white spider on the Venom costume is like that.
One of the things I do like about this book, and I like about the Ultimate Universe in general, with just the stuff I've read, because obviously I haven't read enough Ultimate because to be talking to Eric about Ultimate, because every time I bring up something, he's like, well, you haven't read this yet. But one of the things that I appreciate about this universe is that we never forget about the mutants.
Yes.
And I like all the politics about, like talking about the difference between, like a mutant and just a person with powers, and, like, some people are making that distinction and some people are not making that distinction.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. It's weird how much, especially the beginning of this, reads like it's kind of about the mutants and the X-Men, and they're not in this, and it's actually not about that, but that informs the decisions that S.H.I.E.L.D. is making about the Ultimate Six, right?
Well, and I really like there's a bit, I think it's the President, where he's like, no, he is not another Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really funny. And Magneto in the Ultimate Universe is just a bad guy. Millar doesn't, at least as I recall, it's been a while since I read that stuff, and I don't know if anybody later does different things, but like, Magneto is not painted with shades of gray in the Ultimate Universe.
Okay.
He is a villain.
He's like Stan Lee Magneto?
Yeah. I mean, he's post 9/11 Magneto.
Well, yeah.
Like, that's really what we're doing with that.
I'm sure he's scarier.
And he's got my favorite Magneto helmet, where it's black with the red instead of the red with the purple. It's black with the red. It looks great. And he is the one that crippled Professor Xavier. He throws a bamboo stick straight through him.
Wow.
But
and probably does not immediately thereafter say, we want the same things.
Yeah.
No, my friend, we do not. I've got bamboo in my legs.
But no, he's a villain. And like, that's not just Loeb's character. You remember in Ultimates 3 when he was a crazy person?
I don't right away remember him in Ultimates 3.
Oh, okay. No, I guess he just shows up at the end of that. Sorry, it's Ultimatum, which we've not read and I don't want to read.
Yeah, everyone says that's the worst thing in the world.
He reverses the magnetic poles!
That's powerful.
Because his wife, or not his wife, his daughter died. Like, all of Ultimatum is him taking vengeance because his daughter died. There was a tidal wave that hits New York City.
Yeah, I never knew what happened in it. All I've ever heard is just people like Vince going, "Yeah, stay away, stay far away."
Well, everyone dies. Like they like that was their like clearing the decks and like resetting the like soft rebooting. They just murder everyone. And like really, because as we talked about when we did Ultimates 3, where like Jeff Loeb doesn't get the Millar cynical thing and just like it's like, I guess this is what you like. Like, there's a scene of the Blob eating the Wasp, just like eating her.
Wow.
Yeah, not like a you stop Blob, not like that's just a thing the Blob does. He just eats her. Yeah. So, anyways, I don't want to do that. We will at least have to deal with it eventually because Spider-Man ties into that. But yeah. I don't want to have to read Ultimatum, because it's awful. But this is not good either. It's not Ultimatum bad.
One of the issues I have
but few things are.
With this, and the reason I think I was as disappointed with it as I was, there are a lot of
I told you I didn't like it. You came in knowing.
No, I know that, but I mean, I try to come to things as fresh as I can.
I know.
What I'm saying is, there are places where I'm like, no, this is a cool idea, and then it gets deflated, right?
And I had that too, where I was like, maybe I was wrong about this. Maybe last time I read, I just had a bad read.
And again, it's because it's overwritten. If only we didn't have Doc Ock going on and for so long and laying on so thick how mournful he is for the things he's done, and how he has amnesia now and he doesn't even remember some of it, and like he wants to all he wants to do is help S.H.I.E.L.D. and make everything right. And then like I was kind of interested in that, and I was kind of buying it, and like I guess I'm supposed to, and then I'm supposed to see it as a big surprise when he goes, yeah, no, psych, and then
Murders everybody.
and then he just murders a bunch of people, which is kind of a neat moment when he does that. Like, because he can control the arms even when they're not connected to him,
And that's a big moment.
so there's a bunch of people that get killed by the arms just on a table, and that was cool. But
And that also, as far as I'm aware, because I'm slowly reading through this, going back through the Stanley stuff. I think the first time that happens is in that annual with the Sinister Six. The first time he controls the arms from afar.
Oh, okay.
So that might be
it's
an
calling
intentional
back
homage.
to that. Yeah. But I was, but I was kind of disappointed by that. Where it's like, oh, well, now he's less interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I thought that he was like having a change of heart, and I'm not saying that it's interesting because he's like, suddenly sympathetic. Where like, I have to like a character who was bad and is now is good. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that like I was wondering where that was coming from, and then it wasn't coming from anywhere, and he just felt two-dimensional to me after that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that was frustrating. So those were the two big things. That and, again, Peter Parker not really getting to be part of the Sinister Six.
Yeah, which is the biggest missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Especially, like, because Bendis' Peter Parker is
Now,
so...
that could have gone on too long and been annoying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, we get it. Like, we're holding... we're holding his family over his head, and it's blackmail, and how far is he going to go? Like, Bendis could have taken it to where he does stuff that he would never do. Like, that could have been really bad, but it's better than mind control or something.
And
like,
also, like, at this point...
And he could have done some clever thing to get out of it. And he doesn't get to do any clever thing to get out of it.
No, he's just a kid. Which I think is the point, but, like... Also,
yeah, okay. I mean, that exchange that he and Fury have about that is great.
Mm-hmm.
That whole business where like, look, I'm bending over backwards for you, and I just lost 30 of my guys. Mm-hmm. That's a great scene.
Yeah, yeah.
And I should say too, Fury's written really consistently with what he's been before.
Yes.
Like that's the one thing that really does kind of ring true to me from the other book.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
And also, him showing up in a basketball jersey is hilarious.
But Bendis, at like 50 some odd issues in, Bendis' Peter Parker is so well drawn, and like I have such a good sense of him.
Yeah.
It's disappointing that we didn't get to do anything with it. Like, I didn't get to see Peter like deal with the moral and ethical like dilemma of it all.
Yeah.
He's just like, okay, I don't want to do this, but I guess oh no, I don't have to. Like I never got to see Peter actually struggle with it.
No,
you don't get to feel it.
He's not put in any kind of moral conundrum. Oh, he's got to punch Captain America. Big deal. He can take it.
Mm-hmm. But
it's not that situation where it's like, I'm gonna kill your Aunt May, or I'm gonna kill Mary Jane if you don't. I don't know. Eat this kitten. It's not that.
Mm-hmm. But I remember liking the next arc quite a bit. So,
okay, cool.
I remember being a lot of fun.
It's a Doc Ock.
It's a Doc Ock story. I remember it being a lot of fun. And it comes out around the same time as Spider-Man 2. So expect Spider-Man 2 things.
Cool.
In that, which makes sense because you're doing Doc Ock. But
because you gotta have like.
It's called Hollywood is the arc name. So we're doing Spider-Man 2 things next time.
I remember the covers for Hollywood.
Oh, cool. But yeah, this one's not great.
No. No, it's not.
And unfortunately...
And yes, you warned me about that. You told me that.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's skippable. We get things with both Doc Ock and Green Goblin that I don't think we're going to we get here that Green Goblin can now turn into it at will, and we get that Doc Ock can control his arms from afar.
Well, and also some motivation stuff. Like, we didn't...
This is where we finally fully get the
Green Goblin was obsessed with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
We knew that he wanted to be Spider-Man in a way, but we didn't know that he saw him as like genetic perfection.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and
then Harry Osborne, I'm sure we build on after this.
I think he's involved with the next Goblin story we do. I can't remember.
Because he hates at the end of this, he hates the Ultimates in Spider-Man for doing what they do to Green Goblin.
But he's all messed up in the head. Like he's been hypnotized. He's been programmed. Harry Osborn will never be a normal person after that first Goblin arc.
But to your point, okay, so we hardly ever get to see him as a regular
person.
No,
you will never get to see him as a regular. The most regular person he is in the first arc. After that.
But I brought that up to say, to your point, if what he does at the end of this is ever mentioned again, this is not skippable.
Yeah. And also, I really liked the scene where I had it. Where Peter has his thing about how Norman Osborn. He's like, I don't think this made you this way. I think you were always this evil and crazy.
Yes.
I am pretty sure
That was great.
you were just a bad person.
Well, he
And
seems like it in the first arc.
And I like that differentiation from someone like the Lizard. Where he's like, you might use this as an excuse that, like, this made you crazy. I don't think it did. I think you were always
Yeah,
this
maybe
way.
it made you crazier.
Yeah,
The
maybe it made
reason
you
were-
more so.
Yeah, and it's that, like, lacking in responsibility thing where it's like, no, you brought this on yourself.
Like, you didn't accidentally get this way in, like, a lab accident. Like, you did a lab experiment you shouldn't have done, and it just made you more so.
Well, being the monster goblin, like, he became the perversion of the thing he was trying to be. So if it was stable and he just got the powers that Spider-Man has, he'd just be a flaming bad guy. He wouldn't look like the same kind of psychopath, but he wouldn't be trying to cure cancer. He'd maybe be all for himself. And
Does he seem more sane here than he did last time?
Yes.
Does he? Okay.
yeah, he did to me. He seemed more lucid.
I guess he's not muttering to himself all the time.
Huh.
Okay. So maybe that's why we never see those, like, weird things
He
through his
doesn't seem
perspective again.
delusional. He seems obsessed and he's sociopathic, certainly.
Okay. I didn't think he felt that different, but no, you're right. He's not talking to himself. He's not talking to those things that only he can see, because those never come back. But maybe it is because he's not in his right mind in that story arc, but now he's Norman Osborn.
I couldn't tell if he got, like, stabilized somehow, or if they're giving him some kind of medicine or something.
It might just normalized in his system, something like that. I'm not sure if he's on, like, antipsychotics or something. But yeah,
But no, it's not great.
it's not great.
Well, everybody, thanks as always for watching. Sure appreciate it. If you've ever read this arc, let us know what you think about it in the comments. And if you haven't, now you know some of the things that are in it and what it's like, at least from our lens. Next time...
And I never hear anybody talk about this. This is never a story anyone brings up. Is like,
No.
it's like, oh, I love Ultimate Spider-Man. You remember when the Ultimate Six got together?
No, but it doesn't have... I don't think it has any reputation. It also doesn't have that, oh my god, stay away from Ultimate Six. Like,
Yeah, you're right. It's just kind of forgotten.
People probably just assume that it was in the book, right? Like, the
Yeah,
Sinister
most people
Six
probably
stuff.
don't know that it's
That's
a
a mini.
miniseries. Because it's just collected along with the rest of them.
Yeah. But anyway, so join us again next time. We're going to do some other arcs in the interim, but we'll get back to Ultimate Spider-Man eventually, and we will do the next Doc Ock arc.
Yeah.
So look for that, and in the meantime, I was Captain Logan,
All right.
and thanks for watching. Bye, folks.